External validation can stop a person from being authentic. It can stop them feeling fulfilled, and it can stop them doing what really inspires them. Now, external validation is something we all have sought at some point in our lives. And I know that because validation is an essential human need. We need to feel like we matter. To some degree, that's important. If we don't feel like we matter, then our life can become pointless. It can lose meaning. And when that happens, we can start putting ourselves second to others, taken to the extreme when we really don't value ourselves or don't believe we hold any value or like we matter. That's when people can even commit suicide. The need to feel valid, to feel important, to feel special is absolutely normal. However, like all things in life, when taken to the extreme, they become problematic, and in this case can lead to problematic habits and patterns within someone's life. Now, all needs show up in our lives as emotional pain, and we can all experience emotional pain. But what separates us is the degree to which we experience that pain and the method or the vehicle we use to fill in the void and remove that emotional pain. First off, the reason we need to feel valid is because validation provides a feedback loop from our environment, from the people around us, from society. It lets us know that we're doing something good, we're providing value. What I mean by that is if we receive praise, in that moment we receive praise, we're going to feel a sense of pride and a sense of validation. That then affirms to us that we have something to contribute, that we are good enough, that we matter. And it is through that feedback system of validation that we can start to really find ourselves and how we can contribute to others. Let me give you an example. If we receive praise, that's the stimulus. What that's going to do is it's going to feel good. In that moment, it feels good. And it gives us a sense of pride, which is here. So it feels good, gives us a sense of pride. Now that's what's happening right now. So validation acts with pride as a feedback loop to let us know that we matter and we're doing something good, we're contributing. However, because it feels so good, what can often happen, much like an addiction, when we're not feeling good, we then play the same pattern of behavior just to get the feeling again, just to get that sense of validation. And what occurs is it pulls us off of our authentic path. We know that that feeling of validation feels good, so we then try and replicate it in the future by any means necessary, just like an addiction, so we can get a hit of that dopamine, of that serotonin that we get when we feel pride and validated. And that is what takes us away from who we truly are, seeking external validation, you could say, in a disempowering way. So if we experience it here, the first part of the pattern, and it feels good, what then happens is we try and replicate it again in the future and just end up chasing validation. So instead of it being a byproduct of doing something good for others or contributing, it becomes something we seek, much like an addiction. Now, nobody can escape negative emotions. We all experience them, and we all form different strategies for then getting relief from those negative or painful emotions. This is what creates our pathway forward in life and why your pathway is so different to my pathway. But some people, for example, will choose to get relief through maybe smoking cigarettes. Other people would choose to get relief through maybe praying or deep breathing exercises. So you can see that we're all trying to escape a negative pain because they're unavoidable. It's just the way in which we do it that really makes the difference within our lives. If we're seeking validation because we don't feel worthy, it's going to lead us on a never-ending chase. Like trying to reach the horizon by running towards it, it's just never going to end. And we're going to be spending all of our time, money, and energy trying to get that feeling of validation for the rest of our lives. If, however, we get validation from serving someone else and doing something that inspires us, well, that completely changes the paradigm of validation. All good business owners realize that it is important to validate an idea before they take it out into the market. That's a healthy thing to do in business. And the reason is because the business isn't looking to validate the identity of the business. It's looking to validate the utility of the idea. How can it serve, and is it wanted in the world? Is it functional in the world? We can then use that for ourselves as well. If we're looking to validate our identity in the outside world. The outside world's just going to define us. We'll never feel authentic. If, however, we get feedback from the outside world that validates our utility, that's going to actually help us discover the value we can bring and what our purpose is. This means we can either chase validation as a means to validate ourselves, to feel better, to bolster our self-worth, or we can seek validation as feedback for providing a service, from providing some kind of benefit to the outside world. Validation then becomes a byproduct of our utility, of our purpose to the world, instead of some kind of addiction or pleasure that we're seeking externally. Now, what that pattern would look like, the healthy pattern would be, the thoughts would be along the lines of, how can I serve? The feeling would be one of presence. The action would then become inspired, because we're not trying to do it for selfish reasons. There's no emotional wound driving us. And then we can contribute. And as a byproduct of that, we're going to get validation anyway. So how do we transition away from these disempowering patterns of seeking validation like some kind of drug to a more empowering pattern of receiving validation as feedback for the utility and the contribution we're making to the world? Really, that transformation happens gradually, but there is a key mindset shift. And it is away from a selfish desire to get more to a selfless desire to give more, to contribute more. Now, that can be a lot easier said than done, especially if someone's got some emotional wounds. And the reason they're seeking external validation in the first place is because they have low self-worth. And if that low self-worth drives them, then it can be quite difficult to make that transition. If someone feels unworthy, not only are they going to be able to see their own intrinsic value and how they can serve, but they're also going to be looking for short-term gratification to get away from that pain of unworthiness and hopefully get a hit of pride and a hit of validation. We filter our entire reality through the lens of our unmet needs. So if we don't feel worthy, if we feel invalidated, we're going to filter every opportunity that we come across as a means of gaining more validation. This combination of low self-worth, not seeing our own value, chasing short-term gratification, it just keeps us stuck playing repeating patterns. And if you know me and my work, you'll know that I do not believe in quick fixes. There is no way to biohack your way out of low self-worth. What we need to do is go deeper. Get to the fundamental level of your being, and then start creating change from the deepest level, because that is when we can cultivate genuine, true self-worth and make that transition from seeking validation to instead contributing and gaining validation as a byproduct. To attain true self-worth allows us to overcome the quest for external validation. It allows us to overcome anything that we're relying outside of ourselves to bolster our self-worth. True self-worth leads to authenticity, and authenticity leads to inspiration and doing what we love. And the only way we can do that is by becoming more aware of ourselves and our patterns. You being here right now is the starting point for gaining the information, gaining the awareness to actually start breaking these patterns. Once we're aware of these patterns, these strategies that we're implementing in order to gain validation, once we can recognize them, we can see them coming, we can then consciously choose to implement a different strategy, something that's more inspiring, something that involves a contribution to others. Now, this is going to feel unfamiliar at first. It's not going to feel like it's you, but that's the same with changing any pattern, any habit. It's going to feel unfamiliar at first, but the more we do it, the more we repeat it, the more we catch ourselves, the more we recognize it occurring, over time, through repetition, we're going to break that habit and start to rebuild a new, more empowering habit. Having awareness is the key, followed by intention and presence. These are the pillars that we need to change any area of our lives. You now have awareness. And if the more awareness you can get over different ways that you seek validation externally within your lives, the more awareness you can get, the better, because the more you can start to distance yourself from those thoughts and those patterns of behavior. The next thing to do is have a real clear intention about transforming that pattern into something more empowering. And then stay present with that intention. The more present you are with your desires, the things you want, the quicker they are going to manifest within your life. So it is that combination of more awareness, having a clear intention, being present with it, that's going to lead to the transformation. If we have low self-worth and seek external validation, essentially, unconsciously, we have shame sitting within us. And I will put that here. So there's some shame sitting in our system. And so what we can do through the processes I've talked about, and I'll talk about more in a moment, we can actually unlock the cardinal trait of nobility. And when we unlock the cardinal trait of nobility, we begin to have higher levels of self-worth, which starts to take us from this pattern into the higher pattern up. Now, during my own transformation, you could say my own healing, I spent a long time in meditation. And during that time in meditation, I felt that invalidation to such a degree, that shame within myself to such a degree, that it no longer burdened me. And when it no longer burdened me, I then had genuine self-belief. I had genuine nobility, self-belief. This is how I healed the part of myself that was seeking external validation. And it was through the process of meditation, each morning and each evening, which allowed me to overcome these patterns. Each morning I would meditate and ensure that throughout the day I was focused on how I could serve. And then in the evening, I would do the same thing. I would look at where I'd maybe succumb to external validation. I would then go through a process to transmute that, unlock that cardinal trait of nobility, become more whole, become more authentic, so that in the future, again the next day, I could get back on with my mission and serving others. So I just want to summarize a few things. External validation is normal. We all need it to some degree. The thing that matters is the motive. Why are we seeking it? Is it because we feel unworthy and we want the outside world to validate us, validate our identity? Or is it the byproduct of doing something we love and serving others, where it's really our idea that's being validated for the utility and the service it provides to others? And if we want to make that transition, which can be difficult, it's really about the mindset shift. Changing from one of selfishness, you could say, to selflessness, to contributing to others. And to do that is a process of meditation, because it's not always easy. Really getting down to the fundamental level of who we are, the thoughts we have, the feelings we have. If there's low self-worth, overcoming that, unlocking that cardinal trait of nobility so that we can then be more authentic and more inspired. Again, we can do that through meditation. Now, if these images and these ideas of cardinal traits are new to you, just go through my free course, completely free. It'll take about an hour. It's called Discover Your Authentic Self. There'll be a link around this video somewhere. If you enjoy this content, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you have any patterns that you want to understand better, whether it's to do with relationships, building wealth, everything, every outcome in our life can be tracked back to a perception or a thought that we're having. So if we want to have greater wealth, more abundance, if we're having relationship difficulties, even health problems, any of it can be traced back to certain perceptions and emotions we feel, because they are what drive everything within our lives. So if you want me to break down an emotional pattern, just let me know in the comments section and I would love to do that for you.